Republican legal voices today endorsed the January 2024 trial date proposed by special counsel Jack Smith in his 2020 election interference case against former President Donald Trump. The group included former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, appointed by George W. Bush, and J. Michael Littig, a retired federal appellate judge and one of the nation's leading conservative legal minds. Judy Woodruff recently visited Judge Littig at his home in Colorado as part of her ongoing series, America at a Crossroads.
I understood the gravity of this matter, and I understood from my lifetime of experience in and around those offices and those institutions that this was catastrophic for America and for American democracy.
Retired Judge Michael Littig is one of the most influential conservatives to have served in the federal judiciary. He clerked for Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia while he was on the appellate circuit, served as assistant counsel to President Ronald Reagan, and was the assistant attorney general under President George H.W. Bush, who later appointed him to the United States Court of Appeals. He was twice considered for nomination himself to the Supreme Court.
I felt that I had a profound obligation to the country to speak and to explain all of what had happened.
Well known in Republican legal circles, Littig burst into public view when on January 5th, 2021, he advised then Vice President Mike Pence to defy former President Trump's plea not to certify the 2020 election results.
Judge Littig, thank you as well for being here with us today.
Littig spoke about it in dramatic testimony more than a year later before the House January 6th committee that was investigating the insurrection.
Donald Trump and his allies and supporters are a clear and present danger to American democracy.
Challenging Trump so publicly thrust him into the hot lights of American politics, where he's been ever since. We sat down with Judge Littig at his home in Vail, Colorado, to talk about where the country is in the aftermath of the past 2.5 tumultuous years. You've been saying for months that Americans have lost their moral compass, and that with this loss of direction, Americans have lost all perspective. What brought you to that conclusion?
For almost 250 years, Judy, there was all but a consensus among the American public on the fundamental values and principles on which America was founded. And then all of a sudden, it seems we don't agree on anything at all. We have not talked to each other as friends and fellow citizens, Americans who share the same destiny and have the same hopes and dreams for America for 6 or 8 years now.
And that being the case, you're still confident that there's more that we have to agree on?
I am. I know that there's more that we agree on than that we disagree on. Our officials and our elected leaders have talked to the nation and talked to we Americans as if we were enemies of each other. And we've never been enemies of each other. Over the timeline of the past 10, 15, 20 years, leaders on both sides of the aisle have failed us. But as of today, and for the past 2.5 years, since January 6, 2021, it has been the Republicans who have reprehensively failed us as Americans. On January 6, the former president and the Republican his allies and supporters declared war on American democracy.
How much responsibility does former President Trump himself bear for all this?
He bears disproportionate share of responsibility, if not the entire responsibility. The former president sought to overturn an American election, which he had lost fair and square. For 4 years, these claims by the former president and his Republican allies have corroded and corrupted American democracy and American elections. Vast numbers of Americans, into the millions, today no longer believe in the elections in the United States of America. They no longer believe in the institutions of law and democracy in America, the very pillars of our foundation. And many of those people have begun even to question the Constitution of the United States.
But you're saying the damage done has been far, far greater than former President Trump, January 6th, and the immediate actions that were taken in that time period.
Yes, there's no question. Never again will the world be inspired by America and America's democracy in the way that it has been for since our founding almost 250 years ago. The indictment and prosecution of the president doesn't end or even begin to resolve this matter.
How much does it matter what the verdict of that trial is?
All that matters is that the president will be tried for these grave offenses. Had he not, he would have made a mockery out of the Constitution and the rule of law.
But do you worry that whether there's an acquittal or a conviction, what the effect could be?
We can expect that if the president were to be acquitted, that he and all of his supporters would claim that that was vindication, that he was right that the 2020 presidential election was stolen from him. Were that to be the case, I don't believe that American democracy could be saved, at least in the near future.
That's a terrible statement to hear from.
I understand.
From you.
I understand.
Former President Trump, as you know, is already saying he's not guilty. He believes he's being treated unfairly in all this, especially in contrast to President Biden's son, Hunter Biden. He has said that he's being treated much worse by the judicial system.
The issue with Hunter Biden and the issue with the former president, they are not similar in any way at all, let alone in gravity or consequence. It's the incumbent president's son, and the personal conduct that he's being accused of is of a pedestrian nature by comparison to what the former president has now been indicted for.
Returning to something that you've spoken about in this interview, a big part of today's problems with what we're facing as a country has to do with political leaders, elected officials. What about individuals like Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, like Senator Lindsey Graham, who are leaders in the party but have not so far spoken out clearly against former President Trump?
Any leader, Republican or Democrat, who has not spoken against January 6th and the former president's role in it has betrayed their oath. January 6th and what the former president did is not politics, and it certainly is not partisan politics. This is far above and beyond politics. And as we now know, it's literally crimes against the United States of America. But all of our politicians, and especially the Republicans, have regarded it as nothing more than politics. In that respect, they have failed Americans. It's critical to American democracy that you have two very strong political parties who are competing against each other on the issues, the public policy issues before the nation. We can't have one party who is supporting and defending what occurred on January 6th together with the President of the United States who caused January 6th. We can't have that. We cannot function until the Republican Party comes to its senses. In my view, I don't consider the Republican Party a political party in the United States at the moment.
Littig added that he believes the country can't be set on course again unless a number of those elected officials lose their jobs.
What we need to do is remove our power from our elected officials who have betrayed us as Americans and send to Washington others who better understand than today's officials that their power is our power.
When you think about what the country does to heal this moment of extreme polarization, what comes to mind as solutions? What needs to be done?
Someone who has the moral wherewithal to speak and be heard by the nation has to speak.
Is there anyone on the scene right now?
There is not.
Feel that?
Not one single leader in America today, Judy.
So what does that portend then?
That alone portends hopelessness, right? But we have to be eternally hopeful.
For the PBS News Hour, I'm Judy Woodruff in Vail, Colorado.